Tucked away in a lodge nearby a river, Faye intends to write her book in peace but is haunted by disturbing visions of her disfigured self. Are they real or just hallucinations? Does it even make a difference? Let's find out. The movie starts with Faye getting back to her car after having finished another hour of therapy with her shrink. The moment she enters her car though, she starts complaining to her husband about how her therapist is telling her to stop talking to him and that she must move on, because apparently the therapist thinks it is not good for her to engage with him any longer and that it holds her back from moving on. She continues the conversation until she ends it with,
"I'm just gonna have to find another therapist."
Moving over to her home where she's currently on the phone with her publisher, she tries to sweet talk her into submitting the first draft of her new book by the end of this month. As we get to know, Faye is a best-selling author specializing in self-help books that we soon learn is concerning and ironic at the same time. She is currently writing her newest book that normally wouldn't be due until early next year, however her publisher now wants the first draft by the end of this month. But to compensate for the ton of newly introduced stress to Faye, who just had a profound discussion with her car seat, she kindly offers Faye a nice little cabin in Louisiana to get some peace and inspiration for her writing. Sounds fun. Now Faye packs her things, makes way for her car and is now on her way to Louisiana. As she arrives at the calm cottage, she quickly finds out that there is a full-blown construction going on next door. This would be the moment I would pack my bags, call back my publisher, let her know that 3 weeks is impossible, and negotiate a new deadline, or just change publisher. Can't be that hard for a best-selling author, right? But things don't get better from here on out. In fact, they get darker by the second. As we fast forward to the evening, we see Faye is juggling back a few glasses of red wine, even as one poured for her imaginary husband, and tries to get started with her new book. It seems like she is not even aware that she is not with her husband, and that she is just hallucinating. Her phone then rings and we hear a concerned mother on the phone trying to remind her daughter of the dinner that they had scheduled for today. But Faye tells her that she's in Louisiana for the weekend and that she is busy writing. The call is extensive and goes around the whole family and really doesn't add much to this story. It's uninteresting until Faye hears something falling to the floor. She goes to check it and finds that a book has fallen to the floor. It's creepy, I know. She then continues the conversation with her hallucination and starts dancing her worries away. Later that same night though, when she's already in her bed, sort of sleeping, we see something moving underneath her bedsheet. She wakes up, shocked, rushes out of bed and goes to the bathroom like every other character experiencing supernatural phenomena in their house ever written. When she opens the door again, ready to go back to sleep, she is greeted by a silhouette of a woman in her now darkened bedroom. Escaping the madness, she searches for refuge in her bathtub. She wakes up the next morning and is ready to tackle the new day with a blasting headache and a completely normal bruise on her abdomen looking like a hand. She grabs a nearby bottle of pills and reads the instructions that say, "Don't take with alcohol," as if that explains the creepy handprint on her stomach. She walks into her bedroom, seemingly remembers the strange hallucinations she had, and seems to brush it off as a mere side effect of, well, the drugs she had ingested. Now instead of getting some fresh air or some sunshine, Faye continues the engaging format of drinking red wine, making phone calls, and procrastinating. It's honestly amazing how that film flows. Now before we get into that though, let's rewind for a second and assess what's been going on. You see, the only reason why Faye is here is by the request of her publisher. The moment she had arrived though, she came across a full-blown house construction nearby. No writer would stay there, that's way too loud and distracting. In fact, this would be perfect to justify a longer time frame for a draft submission, as you have just wasted time based on your boss's idea. On another note, if we're honest here, Faye is a complete utter mess. This woman should not be on her own. She clearly has some issues and is easily a threat to herself and perhaps even other people. And when considering her previous best-selling book was titled Tender Love and Self-Care, it's ironic how she beats herself up to get another self-help book written. To that extent, red wine and psychosis is a bad combination, right? Especially for getting face inside your boss's house while having to be creative. I mean, look at Van Gogh. He walked out with one ear less. It's a bad strategy. She eventually ends up on her terrace live streaming herself to her fans, something her publisher seems to love. Then she continues with a walk outside. We still see her talking to her husband, but sort of looking into the sky while she does that. In a previous scene, she mentioned how she believes in God and heaven and frequently looks up to remind herself of the blessings from above. This sort of implies though that she may not be hallucinating at all, but simply engages in talk with her seemingly dead husband in order to cope with her loss. Now on her walk, she eventually breaks into a panic attack and we're treated with a bunch of flashbacks showing her in a severe car crash. That is how she got the scars across her face, as well as probably lost her husband. We then cut back to the beloved kitchen table, red wine, and talking to herself when the hallucinations seem to become a tad more terrifying. After having had the latest psychotic break, she tries to get out of the house but is seemingly locked inside. She grabs a kitchen knife and stumbles through the whole house. From G floor to upper floor and back, from window to window. She is going through it all until she ends up in the kitchen again when the voices in her head get louder and louder and eventually put her to her knees. Instead of leaving the house by simply smashing one of the windows, she looks for refuge in Harry Potter's room. She stays in there until she hallucinates another round of ghostly figures. We then switch to Faye waking up in the bathtub again. She checks her abdomen and the handprint is gone. She may just have been dreaming this whole time. Not only that, but when she checks her laptop, it looks like she had been writing a full 2 chapters already. This is good and bad at the same time, right? It is good because she seems to be productive and creative, and bad because that could convince her to suffer through her episodes despite needing help, which could easily lead to her death. However, believing that this house may be haunted, she asks her publisher if there had been any paranormal things going on in this house before, which shows that Faye is concerned and not entirely sure if what's been going on was merely projected by her own fragile mind or truly a product of ghostly activity. After the phone call, she goes over to the door and tries to open it, but every time she unlocks the door locks itself again. Obviously, a clear sign of being haunted. Other than just a simple mechanical issue, she turns around and starts talking with the ghost she thinks is after her. But this time, the ghost ain't talking back. Nope. So Faye does what every other insane person would do. She grabs a bottle of Jack Daniels, sits down again and downs a few glasses and hopes her encounters start anew. Hell yeah. Maybe it's just me, but if a ghost is only showing itself when you are wasted, perhaps it's not a ghost, but well, you just losing touch with reality, right? She soon starts to explain how her husband died in a car crash and how she blames herself for it because she survived, which could partially explain her erratic behavior. She then actively looks for the ghost by checking out all the rooms throughout the house. At least until she comes across an Ouija board. Classic. Increasingly drunk, she sits on the floor and has the great idea to livestream herself to her self-care, self-love audience, because clearly this demographic is into hard liquor at 11 AM as well. The moment she finishes the stream, she is hit up by Emery, her publisher, who threatens her with being fired if she doesn't take down the stream from her profile. Faye doesn't seem to care though, or perhaps is just too drunk to, and replies that she, in fact, does not care and hangs up on her boss after discussing her life and Michael Jackson with her. Faye wakes up faced again, but this time at her kitchen table instead of the bathtub. Some variety at least. Looks like she had passed out on the Ouija board as well. She immediately uses the board to ask who the ghost is, but doesn't get an answer. At least not until she gets up and the board starts to spell itself. She sits back down and asks if it's Jacob, her deceased husband. The board moves again, but before a name can be spelled out, the film is interrupted, again, by a quick jump scare showing herself injured squatting on the table. Now visibly scared by that, Faye does the only right thing. She calls her mom and asks if she was a good kid. Now, insane or haunted, that is the question here. Either way, leaving this house would be a first step, right? Frankly, beating a ghost is easy compared to beating your own mind playing tricks. But having someone else supporting you is good in either case. If I were Faye, there is not a chance that I would stay in this house. Who cares about an arbitrary deadline anyway? In fact, if I were her, I would call over a friend and see if these crazy things keep happening. If they do, this means I am not crazy, and if they don't, well, maybe I am. But now I have help, right? Either way, I would have a buddy to fight whatever is in this house, or a buddy who would bring me to the next institution where I can get the help I need. Seems like a win-win to me. But Faye, on the phone with her mom, who literally tells her that she will come to pick her up, just hangs up on her. Well, I guess to each their own. Now she has another terrifying vision of her injured self. This time, however, she screams at the ghost of her past and insults it, at least until it responds and she crashes to the floor begging for mercy. She also claims that she wants to go home, but thus far hasn't even attempted to get out of this house, let alone enter her car and drive away. While she's on the floor, we get a collection of vivid and graphic flashbacks showing her in the aftermath of the car crash in which her husband had died. Looks like she got pretty shaken up by this event, which I guess is pretty usual, especially when losing someone during that event. Now Faye decides to escape whatever's happening by storming into the bathroom, closing the door behind her. Not sure if that helps, but according to the movie, I guess it does. Well, she wakes up again, in the bathtub, again, checks her abdomen and finds her bruise again, and then she enters her bedroom again, in which she finds another hallucination or whatever is going on lying in the bed. Now, in contrast to her reactions from before, she decides to lay on the bed and, well, talk it out. I guess, new strategy. We as the audience get to know a little bit more of the backstory during the following scenes. While she's talking to herself, we understand that she was apparently pregnant when she had the crash and that the baby did not survive the incident either. Meaning she had lost two important things in her life which caused her life to derail and, well, become whatever we have seen so far. An alcoholic making good money by writing self-help books, I guess. It seems like this scene is sort of the point where she confronts her fears though, sort of confronting her past for which she blames herself, thus being personified by her injured self representing the car crash. Apparently this interaction made her realize something. It is not clear what exactly, but when she ventures down again, she starts to journal and listen to old audio recordings of herself and Jacob. We also see that the ghost of her past, or whatever this figure means to project, sits in the background watching her passively rather than actively engaging with her, which could mean that she finally had settled the bill. Perhaps? We don't know. But what we do know is that she receives a lot of support from her fans the moment she hops on another live stream in which she shares her full story with them. She explains how she ran a red light while fighting with her husband and how this caused the crash and ultimately his death. While taking a well-deserved break or so, we see a bloody footprints tray suddenly appearing. Of course, as we all know, the best course of action after seeing something like this leading somewhere unknown is to check it out. And so does Faye. She follows the steps until she reaches the bathroom, where she now suddenly holds another glass of wine and a case of pills in her hands. It is a strange scene that makes little sense, to be fair, but for the sake of completion, here you go. She enters her bathtub and is now assaulted by her disfigured self, indicating that whatever she had confronted before might still be lurking around her soul. But like most scenes in this film, it is not clear if that is just another vision or actually happening. But after the rapid sequence of violent cuts, we cut to Faye packing her things and getting ready for her drive back home. She also calls her mom and for the first time during this whole film does something actual smart. She asks her mom if she could stay with her for a little while, because she doesn't feel all too well and could need some company, which I think we can all agree is probably a good idea, especially considering her love for hard liquor and live streaming her drunk self to the world. Were there things she could have done better? Yeah, I mean, accepting an unreasonable deadline for a project such as writing a book while grieving over your recently passed away spouse is not a good idea. Sure, writing and being creative are great means to take your mind off of problems, but with a deadline so tight, it's just more stressful than helpful. Faye would have done well to take her own advice from her previous book and stand up for herself and let her boss know that she is not in the right place to write anything good in such a short amount of time. Of course, it worked out in the end, but this girl was waving around with a chef's knife while being completely high, not to mention that she live streamed herself. Could have been cancelled, right? Now with that, my friends, thanks for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed it. Thanks for the support as of late, it's been really great. I see you next Sunday again for a new How to Beat video and Thursday for another experimental video in the horror niche that we're excited to launch. Until then, you take care and binge another one.